Welcome, everyone. I hope you're all staying awake. Last presentation of the day, right? It is the last one?
Yes.
Great. We're almost done, and then it'll be puppy bowl and kitten bowl and cocktail hour. Okay, so what I want to talk to you guys about a lot today in my presentation segment is rethinking what foster means for us. Foster is the future if we're going to get to no-kill in this country, and so that really means that we're going to have to step back and rethink what we've been doing with foster and if we can tackle it in a new way and use it to better advantages for us. One of the things that is a kind of a hot topic in our industry right now is our capacity, right? We have our capacity for care, what our capacity count is in our kennel cage, and I will use these photos to rethink what foster means in terms of our capacity as an organization. These two photos are during Hurricane Harvey at Austin Pets Alive. This is our parking lot at APA. During Hurricane Harvey, when we put out an emergency foster plea for animals that were coming in from the hurricane zone down in Houston. And at that time, we were getting about 200 animals a day, and this went on for about 90 days. So we took in, on the cat side, we took in over 2,000 additional cats in the span of 90 days. Where on earth were I going to put those cats, right? Where do you stick 2,000 cats? The only answer to this is in foster. So when I think of our capacity to care, I don't think about my shelter's capacity. I don't think about the walls or how many cages I have, how many kennels I have available. When I think about my capacity to care for Austin Pets Alive, it is a direct reflection of our community's capacity for care. Every single one of these people waiting in line to foster a pet freed up 2 cages at our shelter, because they could take home 2 pets or 2 litters of pets. Without those people, our capacity at Austin Pets Alive would be a tiny fraction of what it was. And so what is not expanding at our shelter? Any ideas? What is never getting any bigger at your shelter? Your space, your walls, your kennels, they're never getting any bigger. If you're going to increase your life saving, something else has to get bigger then. And it's your reliance on your community to step forward and be your capacity. So if you're subscribed to Challenge for Capacity for Care, great concept, great things, but I want you to take it another step further and rethink your capacity to include your community's capacity to care as fosters for your organization. And rethink that every single person who comes forward to foster for you is basically 2 kennels worth of capacity for your organization. And you've got to harness those people to empower your organization to go forward and save more and more and more and more animals. And that's how you're going to be able to increase life saving in your community when your shelter resources are not getting any bigger. So step 1 to kind of harnessing this power, getting these people on board, is going to be making it easier to foster. We ask people to jump through a lot of hoops to help us in this industry, right? We make them fill out all sorts of applications to adopt an animal. If they want to foster an animal, we ask them to come in once a month and sit through some sort of timeshare-esque orientation, and they need to learn all about us, and they need to sign 1,000,001 forms. We have to stop this, right? We have to stop it with adoptions. We have to stop it with making it difficult to help us, whether it's as a donor, a foster, or a volunteer. You have to have easy online sign up, right? This is a digital age. No one is going to come down to your shelter and say, I'm here to foster, tell me how to do it. I'm going to do it from my couch, in my pajamas, while Netflix is on. And if I can't do it that way, the reality is in 2019, it's not happening. So you have to have an easy online sign up. Have you all ever gone to a web page and it says call for more information? Raise your hand if you've called for more information. Ain't no one calling you for more information, right? I want the answer that I want now. If I want to sign up, I want to do it now. I don't want to have to talk to another human being. I need to be able to do this online quickly and easily. Make it easy for people, put this up online. So about screening people, about screening your applicants, this also needs to be an easy process. How many of you have orientations that fosters have to come in just for run-of-the-mill cats and dogs? There has to be an orientation, and people have to come in and sit through learning about how to foster an animal for you. It's okay, you can raise our hands, I know. I know it's happening. Those of you who had your hands raised, if you put them back up for just a second, how many of you keep your hands raised if you have the same orientation for an adopter? Does your adopters have to go through an orientation before they can take an animal home? right? It's kind of a catch-22 situation, right? We want our fosters to come in and sit through a timeshare presentation about how to foster for us, but if you want to take an animal home permanently and we never see it again, oh great, out the door you go. You don't need to sit through any orientation. How does that work? Why are we doing this to people? What do these orientations usually look like? Hi, we're APA, we're so awesome, we have this program, we have that program, pat, pat, pat. Is it really helping the foster to sit there and listen to this? Did they pay attention? Can we stop these? There's 1,000,001 easy ways that you can convey the information that you want to a new foster without asking them to come in and sit for an hour on their weekend once a month and listen to your timeshare presentation. You can do this in a video that you post online. And the way we do it, we give you a call and we talk to you on the phone. Our volunteers do. We ask you our screening questions. We get you set up in our system. We talk to you about the kind of animal you're interested in adopting. We make a good match. We add you to our system. You don't ever have to leave your house or put on pants to sign up to foster an animal for us. We do that with our goals within 24 hours of you applying. You're screened, you're in our system, you're ready to come pick up an animal. In emergency situations, we're doing that on the spot within minutes. So emergency situations, I'm going to talk about the dreaded cat hoarding cases. How do you handle these? How does foster play into hoarding cases for cats in emergency situations? This is a case I've got up here that happened last year. And we were contacted at APA by a shelter in North Texas, and they had a hoarding case, and they had 41 cats that had to be out by 2 p.m. And oh, by the way, they contacted us at 11 a.m. Right? This happens all the time, right? The only way for us to be able to absorb and save those cats, I don't have room on campus for them, right? Can anyone here just like, hey, I've got room for 41 cats? Yeah, no problem, bring them by around too. Like, no, right? None of us have room for 41 hoarding cats at any given moment within 3 hours' notice. So how we handle these is I'm immediately putting out to the community the urgency and the need. In this case, the urgency is these cats have 3 hours to live and I have nowhere to put them. Can you help? If so, here's how you can help. Come now to this address, help us set up temporary housing for them overnight, help us get through our emergency intake protocol, and then pick out the foster cat or cats you are taking home tonight. And when we're doing that during emergency situations, like these hoarding cases or like during Hurricane Harvey, we've got an expedited onboarding process for our fosters where if you're brand new to our system, you're going to come in, we're going to do this process in person. We're going to add you to our system, we're going to do our screening questions, we're going to get you a good match, and then we're going to tell you, go pick out a cat or dog right now who needs foster, and you're leaving with it within 15, 20 minutes. So that's how we handle hoarding applications. During these feline hoarding situations, our goal is to get these cats out of these temporary living conditions within 48 hours. During Hurricane Harvey, we were really close there. We had to get those cats out because 200 a day were coming. So what that looked like for us was that every single day, those crates of cats in temporary housing had to turn over twice a day. And so we had to rely on fosters to come in and get them out immediately, or else we would never, ever have been able to do that, because certainly no shelter here. Does anyone have capacity for 2,000 plus cats in their shelter at any given time? I don't. I can't imagine what that shelter would look or smell like. But our goal is to get these guys out within 48 hours, and that's how we are able to handle emergencies and the hoarding situations. I will say, when you are stating the urgency and the need, to be as specific as humanly possible when you are asking for something, especially for fosters. So this rings true even more so with dogs, which we're going to talk about shortly. But if you just put out a post and say, we need fosters for dogs, you're going to get 1,000,001 questions about what kind of dog. Well, do you have one that is under 5 pounds and wags its tail and looks like this? Do you have one that gets along with cats? Do you have one of this size? You're going to get 1,000,000 questions. This is a lesson that we learned really hard during Hurricane Harvey. When we put out a plea and said, we have 2,000 cats in the building, we need cat food, no cat food showed up. We did get 1,000,000 questions. What kind of cat food? Dry cat food? Wet cat food? Pink cat food? Grain-free cat food? What kind of cat food would you like? And meanwhile, we're like, just bring cat food. when we posted a very specific link that said, we need Friskies 9 Lives fish flavored in a 15-pound bag, here is the link where you can buy it, drop it off at 1156 West Cesar Chavez between the hours of 11 and 7 p.m. in front of Building C. Thank you very much. Then we were flooded with mountains of what we needed. We had this happen with paper plates, believe it or not. We said, we need paper plates for all these cats. What kind of paper plates? What size? Do you prefer paper, styrofoam, plastic? Would you like the small ones or the big ones? And meanwhile, we're trying to feed and clean 2,000 cats. And I was like, I will murder someone if you don't bring me paper plates. When we put out, please bring styrofoam bowls of the 6-inch size of any brand, please drop them off at this address between these hours in front of this building. We had literal mountains of what we needed then. Same thing with fosters. When you ask, we have a dog hoarding case. We have 35 to 50-pound large breed dogs who are social. Please come pick one up right now. That's what we have. That's what we need. For cats, in these hoarding cats, these are senior, under-socialized cats. They can be with others. They're healthy. Come foster them to avoid those questions. So the more specific you are in your ask, the better results that you're going to get, whether it's asking for in-kind donations or whether you're asking for fosters. People in general don't like ambiguity. Take the guesswork out of it and make it easy for them to help you by being direct with them so they know if they can help or not. So on rethinking animals that are available for foster, who's available for foster in our organizations right now? Typically, animals within our org, animals that we own, are available for foster right now. I want you to rethink this and see if you can be putting animals into foster that you don't even have in your organization right now. And so what do we mean by this? If you email me at Austin Pets Alive and you say, Monica, we've got 25 cats and they have got to go, they're at risk of euthanasia, and we are from Louisiana, I'll say, wow, that's unfortunate. I certainly don't have room for 25 Louisiana cats in my cattery today. However, I don't want yours to die. Let me reach out to my fosters and see if our community will open its hearts and homes and take in your 25 cats. If they do, then I am happy to take your cats into Austin. And we do this all the time, right? Because I only have about 50 or 60 cat cages at my cattery in the adoption center here in downtown Austin. I can't take in every cat in the world unless people open their hearts and homes and do it for us. That is our capacity. So we do this all the time for both cats and dogs, that I don't have room at my shelter, but someone in our community may have room and want to help you, and I'm going to ask them. And if they say yes, then we will transfer that animal in. So think about all the animals in your community that you could be saving if you made them available to the members of your community and ask them to help. You'll be surprised when you put a plea out to your foster network and you say, these are 25 cats in Louisiana, they're at risk of euthanasia because of X, Y, or Z. We cannot take them unless you open your hearts and home because we're full. Shelter is full. We can only take them if you agree to foster. People come forward and they take them. Give those animals in your community an opportunity for that. And rethink of foster as all of those animals that you could be taking in that you're not right now just because you don't have space within your 4 walls at your shelter. All right.
Now it's me.
Now it's you.
All right. As Monica said at APA, we kind of bisect dog and cat. So she can talk all about cat, but sorry, we're getting dog now. All right. So, how many of you are fosters in here? Yay, you all rock, right? Okay, how many of you can take pregnant moms, newborns? Oh, those numbers went down quite a lot. Okay, great. How many can take bottle babies, tube feds, all that great stuff? Okay. What about severe medical cases, distemper, ortho? Cool. Bite dogs, dog aggressive, Oh, that number went down a lot. And then senior dogs, how many? Yeah, everyone, right? You want to know what I can take? Puppies. Why? Because I have a dog at home that cannot be with adult dogs. He loves puppies, but otherwise that's it. Does that make me a bad foster? No. It makes me like every single other foster out there that doesn't actually work in animal welfare, right? So at Austin Pets Alive, when you fill out our dog foster application, you fill out a question that says, are you willing to take these 5 things? We calculate this, and only 13%, 14%, 15%, 16% say that they're willing to take pregnant moms, newborns, bottle babies, medical, dogs that require more active management, which is our PC way of saying a behavior dog. And then senior dogs everyone loves, right? If you want to grow your foster program, you have to realize this. You have to realize that everyone out there who can take a dog from you may not be able to take that medical dog, may not be able to take that behavior case. You still want them. So when you're rethinking about who you make available to your foster base, you want to make those easy peasy cheesy, gonna get out in 2 days, things available to your foster base. Does that make sense? I know that's a little taboo. All right, I'm gonna tell you a story about a dog. Perfect dog in shelter. He is a pit bull mix. He spent about 2 years in the shelter system, but he's perfect. Play group rock star, meets everyone, does fantastically, nothing is wrong with him. Do we see a great, awesome live outcome for that dog? Yes, hopefully, right? I mean, the 2 years thing may not fit with your shelter, but okay, great. We put that dog in a foster home. In the first week, he bites his foster. He proves that he cannot live with other animals. He's so on-leash reactive that the foster is afraid to take him outside, because if he gets to the thing that he's being reactive at, who knows? She takes out pots and pans to make spaghetti at night, and suddenly he's baring his teeth and growling at her. Do we see a live outcome for that dog? No? That's my dog. That's my guy. So one of my first forays into foster was this behavioral case that was perfection in shelter. No one expected him to be anything else. He now is a 3-bite case and all the things that I said. So basically what we're looking at when you have the numbers for foster homes is everyone wants to reach into that behavior dip, right? Everyone wants to try and get that behavior dog into foster. So this is how we do this. There are 2 types of behavior dogs that you're looking at in a foster home. One of them is that dog that does amazing in shelter. That's Rocket, that's my kid. Sucks in a home. Guess what's gonna keep happening to that dog if you don't get him into a foster home? Adopted, returned, adopted, returned, adopted, returned. And how many of you, your space count, your adoption count, days in shelter, starts over when they get returned, right? So that dog may stay in your shelter for multiple years, and yet he keeps hitting that maybe 30-day mark because he keeps getting adopted and returned. So that's one dog that you can put into your foster program, behavior kids. The other kids, and most likely what you guys are worrying about, is that shelter stress kid. They suck in shelter. They're barking at everyone, they're lunging, they suck in play group, they're hiding and cowering in the back of their kennel. But you know that like you get them out into a home and that dog's gonna rock. Do any of you have those stories, like you've seen that dog and you're like, I know you're gonna be great. I just have to get you there. So how do you get them into a foster home? Everyone always asks me that. How do you get behavior dogs into foster homes? Well, one of these dogs, the dog lying on the bed over there, his name is Whiskey. He is currently a long stay at Austin Pets Alive, and he has been into multiple foster homes. Whiskey, if I am going to sell him to you, dog aggressive, you can't use aversives on him like spray bottle or anything. He will bite you. He has a moderate to severe bite to the chest. And so far, he's only been successfully able to live with a single person in a home. Are you gonna take that dog? No, not quite, huh? So the language that we use when we're talking about our behavior dogs is really important. The way that I market Whiskey is this. Whiskey is an awesome in-house guest, house-trained, crate-trained, doesn't bark. You can leave him out of the crate for 10 hours. His last foster mom did, and he did fantastic. Here's what we're gonna talk about with Whiskey. You know, do you have any other dogs at home? No? Great. We're not gonna let him meet other dogs. And how easy is that? When you see a dog walking at you from across the street, we're gonna turn, we're gonna go the other way. That's it. I'm not asking you to take him up on leash and have him meet another dog. You're explaining these management techniques, right? So we want to talk about, kind of describe a day in the life with your behavior dog, other than saying, Whiskey has a bite. Whiskey's dog aggressive. Does that make sense? No? Y'all are too tired? We're not doing it? No? Okay. And I know the thing that's screaming in the back of your head as I'm saying all of this is, Reagan, what about the liability? You said Rocket bit you in the first week. How am I supposed to put that dog out into the world? You have waivers, and they are there for a reason, and they're going to go in the first step of your foster process. Anyone who fills out the APA dog foster application, they have to sign a little checkbox that says, I understand that accidental animal bites or other injuries to humans and other animals do occur, and I agree to hold harmless and protect APA from any claim or suit. They're also saying that APA will not be responsible if the dog should damage or destroy property belonging to the foster caregiver, their household, or any other person. They're signing that agreement when they submit the foster application. And then they're gonna see it again in a match email. And then they're gonna see it again when they come pick up the dog with me, right? So basically you're putting these language into place so that you don't have to worry about someone coming back at you. And yes, I have had people come back at me and say, hey, the dog destroyed $1,000 in my apartment. You wanna know what I did? Here's the little waiver you signed that says that I'm not liable, and it worked. It works. I know you all are thinking like paper, Reagan, it's just paper. I promise, it's okay. So, any questions on that before we go forward? Yes? You are. I'm saying he bit someone. I'm not saying he's a bite dog. I am saying, so the reason that we're going to turn around and go the other way is that in the past, you know, Whiskey got surprised by someone. We ran around the corner. We ran into someone. Whiskey didn't know them, and he did jump up, and he landed a bite on them. Now, I always say with that, a bite is not a bite is not a bite. I'm going to say that again. A bite is not a bite is not a bite. This little scratch that you can't even see on my finger, that's a bite. So is punctures, ripping, everything. Whiskey's bites are not anywhere near moderate. They're very minor. So basically I'm saying he jumped up, he took a hold of the person, they had a shirt on, and the person came off with some scratches. You know, that's how you're saying bite instead of that very scary word. Does that make sense? You do. You absolutely do. No. You totally disclose it. But guess what? I'm not disclosing it in the email. I'm not disclosing it in the initial plea. You want to come talk to me? Yeah. If you come and sit down and talk to me, I will disclose all things Whiskey about you. But I ain't ever getting anyone in the door if I tell you Whiskey has 3 bites in an email. Make sense? Cool. All right. When you're dealing with really high volume populations, you have a lot of animals that you are trying to put out in front of people's faces. This is Austin Pets Alive's Trello board. It is our means of pleaing animals to the public, which, oh, interesting. Okay. It normally pops up and it shows me my Trello board, but that's fine. Basically, this is an online board, totally free. It is a database that my volunteers go in and they put pictures and bios and tags and descriptions of all these animals. And then my fosters have the link. They go through and they are clicking through. Oh, there it is. Look, there's my live one. Oh, now where'd it go in here?
Wait, you have to look over there.
Oh, but I can't do anything with it? Oh, that's sad. All right. So basically, oh, well, if we can't do anything with it, you can make it go away. So basically what you'll see here is all the dogs that APA is currently pleaing. Oh, but I can't click on anything? No? All right, well then it's worthless. So basically you'll see all the dogs that APA is currently pleaing. They are listed into several different categories depending on what you want. I know I can only foster puppies, so I'm going to scroll down on the side of that board and it says foster needed puppies. I get to look through all of those ones. If you have a strong love towards medical cases, that's up there as well. So this is a totally free service. It is free. Free. It is called Trello, Trello. Basically, what you can do is you can go on and create cards. Your fosters can look on here at any point, and they can pick out dogs to talk to you about, that you aren't constantly emailing your fosters, oh my God, I need this dog out, and they get tired of your emails, right? Cool. All right, another thing with high volume. At APA, we have anywhere from 300 to 500 dogs in foster at any given point. Do you think it's just me managing all of those dogs? No. You have to have an infrastructure in place so that you know where your dogs are going. You're not just putting them out into the world to fly free. You need to know where they're going, their vaccination statuses, their adoption statuses, all of that good stuff. So you need to enlist your volunteers to help you with that. At APA, we have 4 full-time staff positions, 3 part-time staff positions, and 79 volunteers on the dog foster program. And they are the only way that I am able to do any of this and come talk to you. So how do you do that? Break your program down into small and specific tasks that you need them to do. For example, that Trello board is managed by a team of volunteers where their only job is to put dogs on that Trello board. They get a job description, just as if I was posting for a staff position, that explains who they're reporting to, their responsibilities, the time commitment, and basically what we're going to ask them to do. That gets blasted out to our entire volunteer base, and then people come back to me with inquiries, and I say, great, that's awesome. I'm going to give you this protocol. It is a step-by-step guide for dummies on how to do the tasks that you need them to do. So literally, if I could open this protocol, it would say, dog foster, please. Check email by going here and putting in this password and doing this. To add a card to Trello, we're going to click on this button and then this. You get the point, right? So basically, I can put this protocol out. I can meet with the person once for 30 minutes. It doesn't even have to be in person. And then they are fully equipped to handle that position without my oversight. If they have any questions, of course, they can come to me. But this is the only way that you get high volume. Because I can only imagine, foster coordinators, how many of you are out there, it's only like, there's only one of me, right? Yeah, you can't do 500 dogs, only one of you, not to mention all the cats. You need some support, and you know you're not gonna get it with staffing. So you need your volunteers. Create as many work from home positions as possible. Every single one of the dog foster volunteers works from home. I couldn't put faces to names. I never see them. They do my work, and I know that they're doing it well. Develop leads and give them ownership of the team. So as you break your program down, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow, you're breaking it down into sections like onboarding, getting the fosters in, placement of the dog, care of the dog in the foster home. Break it down and give them specific tasks. And maybe, all right, this volunteer really loves the medical side of things. I'm gonna make you the volunteer lead of the care team for dog foster. So you're gonna handle all the volunteers underneath you, and I know everything is getting handled through you. Now, a lot of you probably have things like Chameleon, right? Or Pet Point, or something that you maybe can't access outside of the workplace, and maybe your organization may feel like, do volunteers kind of have a right to go in there and check all the things that they would need to check? This is where confidentiality agreements come in. All of my volunteers sign a confidentiality agreement that basically says you're not going to do bad things with the information that you're privy to now because you need to do the job. These have worked really well. We've never had a problem with it. With 79 volunteers and constantly turning over volunteers for years, have never had a single problem with confidentiality. All right, Lorian.
Hi. Just as a reminder, my name is Lorian Epstein. I'm the Maddie's Adult Dog Foster Coordinator at Austin Animal Center here in town. I'm going to talk about emergency fostering. So here we go. Monica already talked a little bit about the way that you can use emergency fostering to involve your community when you're in crisis. And I'm really pleased to hear more and more stories of shelters utilizing this as a tool. This has been something that's not like a new concept, right? Especially with like weather disasters. When you literally don't have space for animals, people have used emergency fostering, asking the public to come out, take home an animal because there's literally no space. But what I love hearing more and more over the last years is shelters utilizing emergency fostering outside of a weather crisis or a hoarding case, just when like there's an inexplicable high intake and you're suddenly out of space and your adoptions and outcomes, rescue transfers aren't making enough of a difference. We at Austin Animal Center have used this many times. Last year we had sort of a protocol when we got to that space of like only 10 open kennels, only 0 open kennels. We had this reactive strategy. And emergency fostering, launching an emergency foster plea was one of the tools in the tool belt. So it wasn't just something we were like, oh no, we have to do this now. It was something that we planned for. We built documentation to support it. Everybody in the shelter collaborated to make it happen. And now it's just part of what we do sometimes when we're out of space. One thing that has been successful for us, at least once, is showing how full we are, right? Like taking people on a Facebook Live journey through the kennels or through your overflow area. I've been to some shelters where they don't want to put animals in offices or empty spaces that aren't technically animal kennels. But it can be a really successful thing when you use your conference room and line up crates and then throw that picture up on Facebook and say, this is where we're at right now. We literally have put animals in every nook and cranny. There's no more space for them to go. We need you to come. We need you to come take an animal so that we can get out of this situation. That builds trust in your community, right? When you're saying, we don't want to kill animals for space, but we're out of options at this point. And so this is how to do it. There's some logistics. Monica said, keep it simple, right? Ask for specifically what you want. Make sure they know where to go, right? If the Austin Animal Center is a big campus, it shares the grounds with some other city like offices, and there's another pet business on campus. So make sure they know how to find you, and make sure they can contact you. Even though what you're typically doing, you don't want to answer all those questions. You don't want to spend your whole day in a crisis answering Facebook questions or responding to emails. You still want to offer that. Make sure there's a link to the foster application. However, a lot of times, well, at least at Austin, we're not asking people to fill out the application when we ask them to step up. So our normal foster process is you go online, you fill out the application. It can take a couple of days, but we'll get you processed. We create a PID in Chameleon. We send you a welcome email. It's got our foster manual, which we ask you to read. It's got the foster agreement, which we ask you to sign and return. And then you can start fostering. We do have an orientation, but we only want people to come to an orientation and learn more about our organization within 3 months of being approved. So it's not going to be a barrier to like begin taking home animals, but we want you to know more about us. So all of that stuff is not required when we are emergency fostering. We're basically doing processing the exact same day. And so we're not asking people to fill out an application. We're not asking them to read the full foster manual. What we're doing is getting the signed foster agreement, because that's our liability waiver. That's really important. And then we're just having a face-to-face conversation with them about what management for this particular animal looks like. We send them home. We've condensed our foster manual into like a one-page front and back of like the highlights. What do you need to know for safety? How exactly to get in contact with us? What to do in case of medical emergencies and what not to do, right? Don't take your dog to the emergency clinic if you find worms in their poop. Like, that's not a life-threatening reason to rack up an emergency clinic bill. So we give them, we're not going to ask them to read our 20-page manual, right? We make it a lot easier when we're doing emergency fostering. When you're sending out this message, you want to be very specific about how much time you need, right? When you sort of ask for this unending, nebulous, like, take this large adult dog that we have no home notes for however long, right? That can be a hard sell, right? And you might not get people in the door, but if you ask for something very specific, our ask is usually 2 weeks, because we're hoping that within 2 weeks we've been able to utilize our other tools to move some dogs through. And 2 weeks can be a lot easier for somebody to commit to. It's also, a lot of times what we're doing is sending out some of our easy dogs. Dogs like the Rockets of the world are not our primary placement when we're doing emergency fostering. We just need open kennels. So even that highly adoptable, like 8-month-old puppy who has been great in play groups, we're going to send that dog into foster in times of crisis. So a note on other dogs. What we've found is a lot of people step up who have other dogs at home, right? They're the animal people. They're like, oh no, the animal shelter's in crisis. Like, let's go get a dog. But they've already got dogs at home. And so instead of being like, no, you have to keep your dog separated. Like, you can only take this super duper long stay dog who's dog aggressive. And like, you have to do all these crazy slow intros. What we found is I can just go to my behavior team and say, who are your super easy, great playgroup dogs? Because I need to send them all into foster right now. And when you can give somebody like an easy dog, I mean, even easy dogs, things happen. Dogs get fight and resource guarding crops up. Like, everything can happen, even with your bomb-proof dogs. And I don't like that label because nobody's bomb-proof. Where was I going with that statement? When we're trying to place dogs in a hurry, you need to send out those easy ones. And with that, with people who are showing up and they already have dogs at home, a lot of them haven't had a second dog. They just go to the dog park all the time and they're like, my dog's super friendly. But we don't want their dogs to come to the shelter to pick a new friend, right? Like, this is not the time where you're gonna let your dog walk around and like find their new best friend by like walking around. People have this like crazy idea. Like, sometimes people walk into the front doors and they want to literally walk their dog on leash around and let them nose to nose all the other dogs in the kennels. And I'm like, no, that's not gonna work out great. So we learned this through experience. On one of our very first emergency foster pleas in 2017, people showed up with their dogs. And it wasn't the worst thing in the world. It just slowed everything down, and like, speed is the name of the game when you're doing emergency fostering, right? You need to like people in, you need to give them a dog, you need to get them processed and out the door. You don't want to like mess around with like meeting this dog and then meeting that dog and like, is it going to be a good fit? No. You just need to give them the dog that you think is going to be most successful based on like their descriptions of how their dog is at home. And then you counsel them. Like, part of that face-to-face, like, quick process is, here's what to expect when you're taking home a shelter dog. Even though this dog has been rock star in playgroup, home environment is very different. You're going to need to feed separate. You might not want to introduce this first night when everyone's stressed out. You might want to do pack walks in the morning. So we do a lot of that sort of hand-holding to try to set people up for how to really expect this is going to go successfully. And we actually learned that even through, like, I do real deep counseling. I care more about the dog sociability and management at home, more than anything else. Even with that kind of management, like, people didn't do all the things. And when there was a problem between the dogs, they weren't really willing to stick it out. Sometimes we were a little too nice when we asked people to get their dogs. We were like, if it's really unsafe, if they're not getting along, you can bring them back. And sometimes what you have to do is be like, we literally don't have space. Even if the dogs don't get along, you have to have a plan in place to separate them if they're not best friends right away. And so you manage those expectations that way. If you have the volunteers, if you have the staff and you can do meet and greets same day, that's awesome. But most likely you're not going to want them to slow down the process. And even if someone shows up with their dog, you don't have to do a meet and greet, but their dog like flopping around in the lobby and like barking at other dogs or, trying to play with everybody, that's also going to slow things down. So we've started asking, don't bring your dogs. I've hit that point enough, haven't I? Okay. So you want to make sure people know when to come. It's really time intensive. It's labor intensive for staff and volunteers to do an emergency plea, but it's more time intensive to like ongoing like manage a bajillion animals in when you have negative kennel capacity. So what we typically do is ask for specific times that people should show up to pick up an animal, and it's easy to say like, oh, we'll just do it from 12 to 4 because that's when we know like we'll have the time. But you have to remember people have work schedules and have to get there in traffic. So we usually ask for a time period over 2 or 3 days, like starting now through Tuesday while the shelter is open. Come down, meet a dog, take them home. A lot of times, it can be a wait. So you can put that in your message to the public, right? When you blast out on Facebook saying, help, help, we're desperate for emergency fosters. Here's where to come. Here's what not to bring. Don't bring your dogs. When to show up. But it could be a wait. So don't expect to show up and instantly get a dog and go home. And then it's important sometimes to let people know what they're getting. A lot of times we have crates. Other times we don't have crates. So if whatever supplies you can provide, make sure you have stock of that. So that's something that is part of prepping for one of these events, is figuring out what and how much of like food, maybe beds, dog toys, dog bowls. Sometimes people are showing up and they don't have animals at home. They're like, oh, this is something I can do, right? I can help out. And they literally have no supplies. Like they don't have poop bags. They don't have a leash. So making it easy for them, like you don't want them to take this shelter dog to Petco right away and like buy all the things. So we use a lot of donations, right? A lot of people who have dogs at home don't need extra food. They're fine feeding their own dogs food. So just think about like what people are going to need, and if you can provide it, do. With crates, that's a hot commodity around the shelter. We ended up getting lots and lots of donations from Hurricane Harvey, which was fabulous for like these beautiful golden several months. We had like more crates than we knew what to do with. We were handing them out like as adoption candy. I had a crate for every single foster who asked, and then all of a sudden the crates ran out. And again, it was, they were scarce around the shelter. But crates can they can make a difference for especially a new foster, a dog, a multi-dog household. If you give them a way to separate the dogs and do those slow intros, it can be a big help. And crate is a big expense. You don't want these emergency fosters to have to go and like buy a $100 crate on their own. And then for greeting or for the check-in process, make sure somebody's there like saying hi to people. You don't want somebody to walk into the shelter or be wandering around being like, wait, isn't there a crisis? Like, where do I go? So make sure somebody's there, like checking in people. Sometimes people are going to show up and they're going to be like, what crisis? We don't know what you're talking about. We're just here to adopt a rabbit. make sure people are being greeted and they are given instructions. If there's like, lines of people out the door, like Monica showed for the Hurricane Harvey situation, you want those people to know what they're doing. You don't just want them to queue up for no reason, and then they're like, what are we doing here? Wasn't this supposed to be a thing that we can do to help? So make sure there's a way to check in. So take names. At AAC, we just have like a little sign-in sheet. And so the greeter person says, oh, cool, awesome, you're here to emergency foster, sign in. We'll be right with you. If you want to, you can go walk around, maybe meet some of the dogs, and then we'll call you. We have just people like write down their phone number, or we page them over the radio, and we say, cool, now we're ready, come talk with us. A lot of times our customer service has gotten involved too, so sometimes there is no wait and multiple people can be processing these emergency fosters at the same time. That's ideal. Sometimes it's just me. And then you want to help match people with a dog. And a couple of ways to do that is, one, get that easy list of dogs from your behavior team, or if you don't have a behavior team, any recommendations, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, who's your favorite dog? Who's your favorite dog? Like, let's get them into foster. What's worked really well for us in the past has been collecting a list and sharing that on social media with our initial plea. Like, we need help, not only being specific about like, we don't need you to come help with that fluffy poodle that came in yesterday. We need help with these adult, medium and large dogs that are, stuck in crates right now. But then sharing them exactly who. So I usually make a list of dogs so they can meet the dogs ahead of time. They can shop online. And that helps a lot with our matchmaking process, right? They can show up and say, oh, I saw Honey and Coco on the website and I saw that they were good with dogs. A lot of times I'll like just do a little Google Doc spreadsheet and like, this dog, the ID number, if it's intact, how old it is, how much it weighs, and some like basic behavior notes, like goes to playgroup or like has lived with kids in the past. That can cut down a lot on your like in-person conversation time. That does take a little bit of prep work. So sometimes you don't have any prep time, but when you're using emergency fostering just because you have a space crisis, not necessarily because there's like an impending hurricane, sometimes you do have time. You have a day or two lead time to like prep all this stuff and get ready and get everybody on board to like, okay, we're launching this, get ready. Let's all be on board to get animals moved through fast. And I already talked about doing our fast paperwork. Okay, so this is another way that you can impact the amount of animals that move through your foster program. When we think of high volume, we need to think of not just one person, not just one team of people being responsible. We need to utilize all the volunteers, right? We need to have lots of people with their hands in this process, and having your animals get adopted straight from their foster homes instead of having to come back to the shelter can be a huge impact. And I know that there's some fear surrounding this with giving that power to other people, right? Sometimes you think your adoption coordinators are the only people who can do this. And of course, doing this process means you can't do background checks, you can't do home visits. Actually, that's not true. Sometimes your fosters want to do home visits, and that's okay. But this process reduces the amount of time and impact that your staff has to go through. Not impact, that's not the right word. If we can keep them out of the shelter, let's do it, right? We don't want these animals to have to come back, sit on the adoption floor, wait for somebody to notice them, and then talk to somebody who might not really know about that animal. Your fosters are gonna know this animal in and out. They're gonna want to place it with a home that's appropriate. So if we can like rein back our, little control hands, and give them the power and give them the information to place their animals and counsel people successfully, it's going to be better for everybody. So what we do, so this cute little infographic shows the process at APA. So what happens a lot of times is that, all the time for fosters because they're not in the shelter, the animal or the dog or cat is seen online. The person sees, it's in a foster home, and uses the contact info provided. Then there's a whole team of volunteers who get those emails, pass on that information to the foster, and the foster is expected to reach back out to those inquiries within 24 hours. And if you don't, you get a reminder email. And I know this because I fostered through APA. And it's not an angry email. It's just like a, hey, remember, this could be that person who adopts your animal. You don't want to let those inquiries and those excited potential adopters sit in an inbox. You want to reach out to them as soon as possible. So at that point, the potential adopter and the foster are connected. They can coordinate a meeting. Depending on the foster's comfort level, they can invite the person over to their house, or they can meet at a neutral location. And then once the meet and greet has happened, and it's not necessarily a dog meet and greet, it's just a foster pet human meet and greet, or potential adopter meet and greet, then the foster says, hey, this person met, and then at that point the adopter fills out the application, the adoption application, and that all gets handled again through volunteers. That gets passed through the interwebs, and then the adopter, the animal doesn't have to go to APA, but the adopter goes and has that, next level of adoption counseling and that adoption conversation with a staff member or a volunteer. I actually think volunteers do that too, right? APA. Cool. So once everything is finalized, that animal never had to come into the shelter. The adopter goes back to the foster, hands over the paperwork, and the transfer is made. At AAC, it's a little bit different. We allow our fosters to adopt directly to people. We allow them to take applications and approve people directly. And we have like a form that we have like an instruction packet that they can follow. So we show them how they can market the animal, how they can then have those conversations, being transparent and providing full disclosure if this animal has any behavior or medical things that an adopter needs to know. And then they can approve. And once they approve, they can just give that person the animal, as long as it's up to date and spayed, ready to go. What was that time frame back there? 5 minutes. Oh gosh, y'all. All right. Okay. This is just the summary. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.